Chapter 5. As the Nuestra Familia was doing its thing within CDC, George Star Wars Lucas, a Modesto, California native turned movie mogul, based his movie classic, American Graffiti, on his teenage years of cruising the streets of Modesto. Soon after, Modesto became a car cruising haven, and teenagers from across the country automatically continued this tradition. McHenry Boulevard, located on Modesto's west side, became a hot spot for teenage cruisers from all over the United States. Every Friday and Saturday evening, thousands of cruisers converged on downtown Modesto. Hundreds of people simply walked around while hundreds more cruised the boulevard to show off their cars. The guys were looking for the girls and vice versa. There were always different parties to attend. Cruising lasted well into the evening and even into the early morning hours of the next day. On Sundays, most cruisers, including Grattan, ended up at Beard Brook Park. Every weekend, Grattan looked forward to getting together with his best friend and presumed cousin, Henry H.B. Bernal. The two would pull a quick scam to come up with some money to buy marijuana or beer. Then they'd get dressed, hit the boulevard, and meet the rest of their homeboys. Raul the Bully Rodriguez, Phil El Chino Carrillo, and David El Naida Duarte. Grattan was their cornerstone. Even at a young age, Grattan had charisma. He was quick to lead by example and had always been looked at as a leader instead of a follower. Most of the scams these homeboys pulled were usually his ideas, and it was only a matter of time before those ideas would catch up to him. On September 15, 1980, 16-year-old Grattan went to one of the many parties held by Latin Ecstasy and Ladies Image, two of Modesto's car clubs. The one on this night was held at Sylvan Hall on McHenry Avenue. While there, he got together with a few of the older homeboys and became very intoxicated. He spent the next couple hours drinking Budweiser, shooting the shit with the homeboys and dancing with some of the homegirls. Grattan was well known and always had a good time at these parties. As usual, however, fights broke out because somebody stepped on somebody else's shoes or asked the wrong girl to dance. The party would be over before anyone else knew what had taken place or the cause of it. A party that ended early usually left those who attended wanting to continue their festivities elsewhere. That night, Johnny B.J. Vargas and Michael Little Mike Martinez offered to take Grattan along with them. He quickly jumped at the chance to ride in their lowered Chevy Vega with custom rims and loud stereo system. The music group Zapp and Roger was playing in the tape deck. In Grattan's mind, it was time to cruise. What he didn't realize, however, was that he was cruising straight into trouble. After leaving the party, and the rest of the partygoers standing around Sylvan Hall's parking lot, the Chevy Vega pulled into McHenry Boulevard. The stereo full blast, people turned their heads to see where the music was coming from. The light was red as their brown car slowly approached the first intersection only a few yards away, and the Vega rolled to a stop. While stopped, a group of white males in a blue Chevy Camaro pulled alongside the Vega and took offense to the loud music. One thing led to another, and the driver of the blue Camaro threw a full bottle of beer at the Vega, hitting his front seat passenger BJ in the face. The Camaro sped away. The chase was on. Upon regaining his composure, BJ pulled out a sawed-off shotgun that had been lying next to him and demanded that Little Mike, the driver, get close enough to the Camaro so he could get off a clear shot. Due to heavy traffic, they were able to catch up to the Camaro in a matter of seconds. The two cars once again side by side. BJ pointed the shotgun at the Camaro and fired one round of buckshot into the driver's side window, hitting the driver in the face and upper body. As the Camaro crashed into a parked car on the side of the road, there was just enough room for Little Mike to maneuver the Vega around and out of the traffic. He took the first side street in order to exit McHenry Boulevard and the main roads. During their getaway, BJ handed Grattan, who was sitting on the passenger side of the rear seat, the shotgun and told him to hide it, which was a difficult task in such a small vehicle with limited hiding space that made it even harder with the police who had witnessed what had taken place in hot pursuit. Grattan decided to hide the shotgun in his pants leg. After a felony stop, Grattan was arrested and charged with his first felony: attempted murder, possession of a sawed-off shotgun, and carrying a concealed weapon. He was taken to the Stanislaus County Juvenile Hall and booked. For the next month and a half, Grattan was introduced to the juvenile court system. Since this was his first brush with the law, he was sentenced to serve 90 days in juvenile hall and given probation. While in juvenile hall, Grattan made a few friends he would repeatedly see in and out of the many jails he would visit over the next 20 years. Most of these homeboys were die-hard gangsters with hope-to-die NF beliefs. Once back on the streets, Grattan began hanging around with Richard Big Güero Bernal, a neighborhood legend with a violent temper and a fetish for fighting with police and using the guns he carried. He was also a well-known, respected, and tremendously feared NF enforcer who was rumored to have made his bones by slamming a 50-pound dumbbell into the face of a Mexican mafia member, crushing his skull and killing him instantly as he laid on a bench press waiting to do his next set. With his reputation, ability to fight, and willingness to pull a trigger, Bernal was always in and out of prison. He put Modesto on the map within the prison system. On the streets, Bernal always had money, new clothes, expensive jewelry, and top-notch women with nice cars. Grattan looked up to him, aspired to be like him, and even had people believing the two were blood-related cousins. Bernal taught Grattan about the streets, the prison system, and began calling Grattan Güerito, Little Güero, a nickname Bernal expected Grattan to honor, represent, and make people respect. After hanging around with Bernal and his younger brother, HB, on a daily basis, Grattan and HB eventually got into some trouble of their own. Grattan was about to commit his second felony. On July 17, 1981, Grattan and HB decided to pull a few residential burglaries. After several attempts, the two second-rate burglars were able to break into an armored car driver's home. While in the home, Bernal found a few expensive jewels, and Grattan made off with a .357 caliber Smith & Wesson snub-nosed revolver. They didn't know that a neighbor across the street had seen them go into the home, and they called the police, who were waiting outside as Grattan exited the home carrying the .357 Smith & Wesson. After a short chase, Grattan was arrested and returned to juvenile hall. This time, the court gave him 9 months and sent him to the Natividad Boys Ranch in Salinas, California. At the ranch in Salinas, Grattan met some very indoctrinated young homeboys from Salinas who were schooled by their older brothers, cousins, and uncles, who had either grown up around or were actually in the NF. He learned about the spin-off gangs within the California Youth Authority and the Boys' Ranch housing, and about all the wannabe thugs, getting a close-up view of how these future NF members trained at an early age and learned the importance of organization. He was shown the way the young Latinos at these CYA camps model the infrastructure of their manpower after the U.S. government. He learned that the camp president was in charge, with a vice president second in command, followed by a sergeant in arms, and how homeboys could climb the ranks. Since he was a leader and not a follower, Grattan became camp president before he was released. He had gained a lot of knowledge from the little homies at the boys' ranch, but he didn't learn his lesson. Now 18, Grattan began to get heavily involved with the older homeboys on a criminal level and on a regular basis. Known as Güero's cousin, most of the older homeboys with any influence, like David Pontiac Garcia, an NF captain and one of Modesto's highest ranking members, felt obligated to send him in the footsteps of his older cousin. The OGs, original gangsters, began teaching Grattan how the NF worked. It didn't take Grattan long to commit a crime which would give him first-hand experience with NF members both on the streets and within the prison system. The following was taken from information in the Stanislaus County's District Attorney's file, including Turlock's Police Department reports. On March 24, 1983, Robert Lee Grattan entered Blair's Jewelry Store at 1118 West Main Street in Turlock. He requested that the clerk show him some men's rings, and then he asked to look at a woman's ring. He requested to look at one ring closely, and the clerk gave him the ring, and he put the ring on his finger of his left hand. He then turned and started to run from the store. The clerk grabbed at Grattan, who tripped over the door jamb and fell. He then regained his balance and ran eastbound on West Main Street. The clerk told Turlock police officers that the defendant had been in the store a few days previous with another male, and that the other male put a ring on layaway. In investigation, another clerk in a nearby jewelry store indicated to the Turlock officers that the defendant and another male had been in his store and had put a ring on layaway. The other male had gave his name as Willie Torres, and when attempts were made to reach Mr. Torres, his phone number was determined to be false. The clerk told the officer that he heard the defendant being called by the name of Güero. A description of Grattan was given, and he was subsequently arrested on April 25, 1983, when he requested a detective from the Turlock Police Department to contact him at his residence. Grattan told the detective he was involved in using heroin and had been using approximately $100 a day and had injected about $50 prior to the officer's arrival. At the police station, he advised he was involved with heroin and felt he was an addict. He further advised that he and another male had gone to Lee's Jewelry and Blair's Jewelry a couple days prior to the theft, and because people on duty treated him like they were lower class, his partner placed the ring on hold. On the day that the attempted theft occurred, after seeing the expensive ring, he just thought about what the money could do for him, and he started to run. Grattan stated the woman grabbed at him and he fell, and the ring came off his finger. He was then taken and booked to the Stanislaus County Jail. After spending a few months in the county jail and going back and forth to Stanislaus Superior Court, Grattan ended up pleading guilty. It was then recommended that probation be denied and that Grattan be committed to the Department of Corrections. However, due to Grattan's heroin addiction, it was further recommended that the execution of his sentence be suspended and that proceedings be conducted pursuant to Section 3051 of the Welfare and Institutions Code. Soon after, the Stanislaus County District Attorney would submit a petition to Stanislaus County Superior Court Judge Norman S. Reed to suspend Grattan's criminal proceedings and to instead commit Grattan as a narcotic addict. Approximately 1 month later, Grattan was returned to the Stanislaus County Superior Court for judgment and commitment. On July 12, 1983, Grattan was transferred to the California Men's Facility, CMF, at Vacaville, where he was housed with a wide variety of felons who were also sentenced as narcotic drug abusers. 9 days later, Grattan was transferred to the California Rehabilitation Center, CRC, located down south in Norco. After a brief orientation, Grattan was given an inmate identification number, N-47768, seen by CRC's classification committee, and received the following chrono. Assignment chrono. On 8/5/83, at this in-person appearance, subject is a 19-year-old new commitment who appeared before the committee for the purpose of job assignment only due to unavailability of the central file and C11. Caseworker was instructed to return subject to UCC upon receipt of pertinent files relative to retained exclusion concerns. He was advised of his program expectations and appeal rights. Signed R. Chapman, PA. L. Roberts, CC2, and Lumbaugh, Lieutenant. After being seen by the Unit Classification Committee, Grattan was placed in a dorm-style setting and assigned a bunk with the rest of the general population. However, since Grattan was from up north and CRC is a Mexican mafia-controlled institution, he quickly experienced frequent run-ins with members of the various Sureño street gangs, the arch nemesis of Norteños. Eventually, after numerous fistfights, he was placed in a no-win situation and physically removed from the facility due to the continuous threats on his life and to the prison authorities' concern for his personal safety. The chrono read, UCC Classification Committee. Subject is a 19-year-old NC who was received at CRC on 7/27/83 from Stanislaus County following conviction of attempted GT. Noted is a limited criminal record. There are no arson, sex offenses, or escapes noted. On 8/9/83, Grattan approached the underassigned staff and apprised me that he felt his life was in danger as he was threatened by a large group of Southern California Mexican inmates. According to Grattan, the group of inmates took exception to him because he is from Northern California. Moreover, Grattan related that these Mexican inmates, whom he would not identify, indicated that they contemplated getting him during a recent disturbance and would succeed at a later date. It is the consensus of CRC staff that Grattan cannot program safely at CRC, and a more secure housing is deemed necessary. Appropriate staff has been informed of this transfer. Signed, D. Tristan, PA. Assigned, Lieutenant M.A. Larry, CC1. Ironically, Grattan was then transferred to Chino Institution for Men, CIM, in Chino, where NF members had killed the Mexican Mafia's leader, Rudolfo Cheyenne Cadena, 10 years earlier. Once at CIM, Grattan was housed in the prison shoe and immediately seen by the prison's UCC. This chrono read, UCC classification chrono. Subject was seen in person this date by the unit class. Committee from CRC at CIM East following subject's transfer to higher custody due to enemy concerns at CRC. Subject related to classification committee this day that he was approached by inmates from the south informing him that he had to get off the yard or face the consequences because he is from the north. Because of the security problem that this inmate is facing and his inability to resolve them in a constructive manner, UCC is referring subject's case to ICC with recommendation that he be excluded from further participation in the civil addict program due to CRC's inability to provide proper and secure setting. Subject has indicated to committee that he feels he could be returned to CRC because at present he has an associate who he feels would help out if trouble came down. With this kind of attitude, UCC sees no alternative but to exclude subject from CRC and the Civil Addicts Program. Signed, C. Wilcox, PA, F. Tafola, CC2, and Little Man, CC1. On September 1st, 1983, it was decided that Grattan wouldn't safely be housed at CRC and that he should be excluded from CRC altogether. 2 months later, he was transferred back to Stanislaus County Superior Court for further court actions. C.J. Villalobos, CRC Superintendent, sent a letter of exclusion to the Honorable Norman S. Reed, which read, Dear Sir, the case of Mr. Robert Grattan has been reviewed for suitability for the Civil Addict Program. It is our evaluation that he is not suitable because he cannot be safely housed and programmed at the California Rehabilitation Center. The attached document is a summary of the pertinent history in this case. Mr. Grattan was received into the Civil Addict Program on July 21st, 1983. His commitment supervened his conviction of attempted grand theft on June 3rd, 1983 in the Superior Court of Stanislaus County, case number 191135. As of November 15th, 1983, Mr. Grattan has been in the Civil Addict Program a total of 117 days. Mr. Grattan was at the California Rehabilitation Center less than 1 month when he reported being approached by other inmates and had his life threatened. The California Rehabilitation Center staff evaluated the situation and determined that it was not possible to provide for Mr. Grattan's safety at the California Rehabilitation Center in this open dorm policy. The California Rehabilitation Center staff evaluated the situation and determined that it was not possible to provide for Mr. Robert Grattan's safety at the California Rehabilitation Center in this open dormitory situation. He was transferred to the California Institution for Men for secure housing. Damn. If this guy went to the administration and told them that his life was threatened, that's clearly a PC move. That's just my opinion, though. Those individuals committed to the Civil Addict Program must be able to perform the program at the California Rehabilitation Center. As Mr. Grattan cannot program at the California Rehabilitation Center because of his concerns for his safety, he is not amenable and is therefore excluded. Mr. Robert Grattan has been advised of his administrative rights of appeal. In view of the foregoing, Mr. Robert Grattan is referred to the court pursuant to the provisions of the Welfare and Institution Code Section 3053 for such further proceedings on the suspended criminal charges as may be deemed warranted. For security reasons, Mr. Grattan has been placed in the California Institution for Men, Chino, California, pending court action. Court orders and correspondence relating to his return to your jurisdiction should be directed to California Institution for Men, Miss K. Anderson, Associate Superintendent, Post Office Box 128, Chino, California, 91710. It is respectfully requested that a copy of your order be forwarded to the California Rehabilitation Center so that we may clear our records. Signed, C.J. Villalobos. According to court records and information provided by CRC staff, Grattan was excluded from CRC on November 15, 1983, and returned to Superior Court on December 20, 1983, where he was released from custody and placed on 18-month probation under standard terms and conditions. After his release from CRC, Grattan quickly reverted to his old ways. It didn't take him very long to re-enter his circle of criminal friends and drug abusers. He knew everybody that was supposed to be somebody on the streets, and it was only a matter of time before he'd find himself back in jail or in prison. On May 9, 1985, Grattan violated the terms of probation after he failed to participate in a controlled substance detection program and to report to his probation officer as directed by the court. Soon after, he was rearrested and sentenced to 72 days in the Stanislaus County Jail, where he completed his grant of probation almost simultaneously with his release from jail. Grattan spent the next couple of years struggling with his drug addiction and numerous terms of local incarceration. On November 12, 1985, Grattan was arrested for 484 PC and sentenced to 30 days in jail and probation by the Yuba County Municipal Court. Although he wasn't caught in the commission of a crime for the next couple of years, he did have a few close calls, and his crime spree would catch up with him. On September 18, 1987, in Stanislaus County Court, case number 946367, Grattan was sentenced in the first two cases pending against him to 180 days in jail for possession of a controlled substance, a violation of 11550 of the Health and Safety Code. On the same day, in the same court, case number 945549, Grattan was sentenced to an additional 144 days in the county jail for being under the influence of narcotics, a violation of 11377 of the Health and Safety Code. A few weeks later, Grattan was transferred to the Stanislaus County Honor Farm to complete his sentence, but he had other plans. The following information was derived from the Stanislaus County District Attorney's file, including reports from the Stanislaus County Sheriff's Department. On October 1st, 1987, Robert Lee Grattan was serving a sentence at the Stanislaus County Honor Farm. On that date, he was assigned to a work detail whereby he was working at the Modesto City School Corporation yard and was being supervised by Mr. Herron of Modesto City Schools. At approximately 11:45 a.m., Mr. Herron noticed that Grattan was missing from the facility. He reported the matter to the Stanislaus County Sheriff's Department. The entire area around the corporation yard was checked, and Grattan was not found. A deputy also went to Grattan's residence, but was unable to locate him. Approximately 58 days later, Grattan was rearrested and charged with escape, a felony. He was now faced with the possibility of being sentenced to 1 year and a day in the California Department of Corrections. However, after Grattan's arrest, Grattan gave the probation department a sob story about how he had escaped to take care of his family, and his probation officer went for it. While suffering numerous terms of incarceration, Grattan met many high-ranking NF members whom he befriended. He was drawn in as the NF was making its move to take over Modesto and control the drug trade. Grattan's destiny had mob related written all over it.